What's up, everybody? Today is the day. Showcase release for Battle for Brooklyn DLC coming out next month, and the Year 7 showcase. It's getting close to the end of the Season 6. Here, they got some more stuff they're releasing, talking about going into the 7th year of Division 2, despite me only picking up the game a few weeks ago. So, good to see it's still active, still going along. So, take a look and see what they have to say. With that, let's hit it off.
Thanks for tuning in and welcome to the Division 2 Showcase. We have a lot in store for you today, so let's go.
Year 6 has truly become a year of transformation where we've crafted an ever-evolving experience by making modifiers a core part of our seasonal framework.
With 3 distinct seasons throughout the year, each introduced significant changes to the endgame and our seasonal model.
As we look ahead to Year 7, we remain dedicated to pushing the game to new heights of accessibility for new players and engagement.
With only a few weeks remaining until the final climax mission of Year 6, let's take a sneak peek at what's in store for the upcoming Year 7.
Year 7 will focus on 3 main goals. With the constant influx of new players, improving and streamlining the onboarding process for new agents is more important than ever. We are also focused on adding more depth to the endgame, ensuring there is always something exciting to look forward to. Year 7 will solidify seasons as a cornerstone of the Division 2 experience. Our ambition is to increase the pace and situations, allowing for more regular updates and fresh experiences. Of course, seasons are not the only thing you can expect. During Year 7, we want to make the open world a more dynamic part of the endgame. For example, we're working on introducing an entirely new wrapper to open world activities that react to your actions while unlocking exotic blueprints farming to help you complete your arsenal. We're also focusing on the economy. More specifically, we have a package of revamps that will add more depth to the endgame progression, giving you more control over tinkering and item customization.
We aim to make Year 7 seasons a truly holistic experience by realigning the modifiers, gear, and gameplay with the narrative elements of the seasons, including the Manhunt and Climax.
Additionally, we want to leave room for your feedback. As we run a live game, we do our best to stay attuned to your needs and remain flexible to try to align our vision with your expectations.
We'll be sharing more updates over the course of the year, so you can look forward to more news and announcements each season.
In Year 7, you can look forward to a variety of in-game events, including XP multipliers as well as seasonal projects.
Additionally, exciting new features such as weapon stats and resource boost will be introduced.
Year 6 introduced one of the most anticipated quality of life updates, the stash space increase.
In Year 7, we'll continue expanding stash space along with the Battle for Brooklyn DLC.
Talking about the DLC, today we are thrilled to bring you an in-depth look at Battle for Brooklyn. Battle for Brooklyn expands the Division franchise with a gripping new story. Whether you're a veteran eager to dive deeper into the narrative or completely new to the franchise, the DLC has something for everyone.
So, I haven't played the game for a couple of weeks. I'm talking about improving the ways to increase your tinkering and optimization capabilities, dealing with resources and stash space. Need more stash space. Always having to manage stash space, inventory space quite a bit. So, that being said, it's good that they're looking forward to improving some of those kind of quality of life stuff from playing day to day for everyone that's kind of jumping into this new, like myself, or maybe coming back after being gone for a little bit. So I've seen a lot of people talk about that too. They're interested to see the new stuff coming out. The DLC definitely is generating some buzz. We were talking about it. Now, whether it's everything they want to be, well, everyone's going to have their own opinion. Can't please everybody. But let's take a look and see what they've got to offer in the DLC.
For the first time, players can explore post-pandemic New York in the fall, navigating iconic Brooklyn neighborhoods. You can tackle the new challenges solo or in co-op, making this DLC exciting for everyone. Let's take a look at what awaits agents in Brooklyn.
Battle for Brooklyn is set in the faithfully recreated Brooklyn neighborhoods of Brooklyn Heights and Dumbo, including some familiar areas for the Division 1 players, as well as some new areas never explored in the franchise.
Main missions take place off-site to allow for a greater bespoke story experience on your first playthrough.
And the traditional side missions are replaced by replayable missions you can access from the open world.
To experience everything that Battle for Brooklyn has to offer, it will take approximately 6 to 10 hours, especially if you want to discover all the activities we have prepared for you, including 4 control points, 12 living world activities, 10 bounty locations, 8 hunter readers, and a new set of collectible bounties.
We're going back to Brooklyn because sometimes you need to go back to where you started to see how far you've come. A lot's happened in Brooklyn since the prologue of Division 1. People have moved over, trying to escape the chaos of Manhattan, and they're looking to build a new life, make a change. Coming to Brooklyn in the fall is absolutely significant to our story. It helps us show the passage of time and our characters' and players' evolution as we approach the 1-year anniversary of activation.
To bring autumn to the Division 2, we had to investigate firstly the vegetation and the weather. Via the foliage, we are dressing the city in warm autumn colors. For the weather, we have crafted something specific to Brooklyn. We went for a mix of warm weather with cold and light, and of course, something moodier to try to capture the autumnal contrasts. For Washington Street, the iconic starting area in the Division 1 overlooking Manhattan Bridge, we wanted it to still feel familiar to the players, but also really show at a glance how time has passed and hint to what might have happened in the meantime.
The bridge is the heart of Brooklyn, and the people there have pooled talent and resources that our hostile factions would like to acquire. There, you'll be tasked with protecting the people who built the settlement. Some of the characters you'll meet at the bridge throughout the campaign are familiar faces like Theo Parnell and Dr. Candle, and a brand new face that we've really only heard her voice, Agent Hoskins.
When taking Candle from Division 1 to Division 2, we wanted to show that some time has passed. She's still wearing her same old ID badge, but it's now more worn and has some wear to it. And my colleague Marie's ID badge here at Massive actually proved as a perfect reference for this because it has seen some better days. When designing Melanie Hoskins, we wanted to make sure that you can recognize some of her backstory and her character design. So we gave her a very cute bracelet that says Mom that she wears that were made by her 4-year-old son Freddie. And throughout Brooklyn, we've hidden all these character backstories in their character designs.
The settlement evolves throughout the campaign in multiple stages. What we wanted to capture here is the feeling of community coming together, building and protecting themselves. Brooklyn was hit by the hurricane alongside Manhattan, only here things happened a bit differently. For some areas, the people in Brooklyn have come together to protect the shoreline from the hurricane, so its impact on the city has not been the same as in Manhattan. Moreover, the community has also started cleaning up after the storm. People in Brooklyn strive to rebuild their lives. They are looking into covering their base necessities in terms of food and water, so they are using the available space inside the city to do so, including the rooftops.
In the DLC, players will actually be facing an enemy that they are usually used to or that they have been fighting already, and that's the cleaners. But there's a special twist on those cleaners because they actually have a new weapon, which is what we call the Purple Flame. People might be familiar with the idea of the Purple Flame. Those who have played the Incursion, the Mirror Estate, they might have seen that already. This is something we introduced back then. But in this DLC, in Battle for Brooklyn, the cleaners have been able to find ways to mass produce this weapon, and this is really their main way of bringing destruction. This is how they've launched the assault on Brooklyn now, using that new weapon to really try to erase Brooklyn from the map. So as an agent, you have to go there, not just face the cleaners as you know them, but face the cleaners with that extra level of threat and of danger because of the Purple Flame. In-game, what this means, basically, is there is a new effect that is added to the usual fire effect you would get from the cleaners. Every time you face a cleaner that uses Purple Flame, you're not only going to be set on fire, but we're also adding a corrosion effect. And this corrosion, what it does is it's basically reducing your max armor. So the longer you engage in a fight against cleaners with Purple Flame, the lower your armor gets. And even if you use armor kits, even if you try to heal, you're only going to be able to go as high as what your new maximum is. And that maximum keeps decreasing the longer you fight them. And of course, this is part of our story. This is part of why the cleaners are coming to Brooklyn or why you need to go there and stop them, because it's an unusual threat. It's something that even the civilians in Brooklyn are not used to. We are going to have to find out how did they produce it, where are they producing it, and how did they get all the supplies they need to actually be able to mass produce this new weapon.
No Division story would be complete without the hunters. In Brooklyn, we have 8 new riddles and 8 masks that you can unlock, if you're willing to take on the challenge.
For the Brooklyn Hunters, we wanted their uniforms to actually match their mask designs a bit more than they usually do, and that will also echo into the game design of the puzzles that unlocks them. We wanted to create a cohesive theme while maintaining the amazing classic hunter look.
Control points are a big part of the open world. With Brooklyn, we've taken them one step further. Based on faction ownership, players can expect a different challenge every time they encounter the same control points. Each hostile faction has its own unique ingredients. The Cleaners have the Purple Flame, while the Rikers also have some surprises up their sleeve. Players can expect to encounter those new ingredients in every control point in Brooklyn. For players wanting a bigger challenge, increasing the global difficulty will also have an impact on the amount of ingredients that they encounter in the control points. Smart Cover returns in Battle for Brooklyn as a reimagined skill for PvE and PvP. Using the Smart Cover will reinforce cover, grant buffs to offense and defense, and enhance pulse resistance for all allies.
Players can choose between 2 variants, the Precision Smart Cover and the Fortified Smart Cover. Both variants have some stats tuned differently for PvP.
In the DLC, we have a new exotic mask called the Catalyst, and it's actually perfect against the Cleaners as it gives bonus for dealing and receiving status effect damage. So while burning, you can maintain ADS without disruption. When doing the effect for the Catalyst, we wanted to invoke the feeling of a dying fire. So when you move, the air stokes the fires, causing the mask to flare up more and more the faster you go. But when you stop, the fire slowly dies and only smoke remains.
Battle for Brooklyn launches on May 27, 2025. The DLC will be available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. For those of you who already own The Division 2, Battle for Brooklyn will be available as a standalone product for €14.99. The Battle for Brooklyn Deluxe DLC will also be available, including exclusive cosmetics. You can visit Ubisoft Store to see the options and wishlist the DLC. If you have friends who don't own the game yet, let them know that the DLC will also be available for new players in our new Gold Edition and Ultimate Edition, giving them immediate access to the main game, Warlords of New York expansion, and the Battle for Brooklyn DLC in May. No matter through which edition you decide to get the DLC, it comes with a level 40 boost, allowing you to jump right into the Battle for Brooklyn campaign, and 50 stash space slots, also accessible in the main game.
Working on the Division 2 DLC was an exciting challenge for us.
We're thrilled to be bringing players back to New York, and we can't wait for you to play the Battle for Brooklyn DLC.
Thank you for watching. Now, let's go where it all began. And don't forget to mark your calendars. The rendezvous is planned for May 27th. See you in Brooklyn, agents.
There you have it. May 27th.
Thanks for tuning.
So, definitely some cool things coming on there. Considering I haven't even finished the Warlords of New York expansion yet, I need to get through that apparently pretty quick here. So I can take a look and see what they've done with that expansion that was out when I purchased the game. So, a couple new things with the new skill and new mask. Looks pretty cool. Haven't ran into the Purple Flame through the previous events they mentioned, so definitely looking forward to that. Where's that mask at? Right there. The Catalyst. So gear level still appears to be level 40, so we're not increasing our max level. Just have to keep building out our Tinker library and stuff. So we're not going to have to be grinding for anything level 50. So level 40 is still what we're targeting here and getting stuff done. So good to see they're not going to change that on me. I still have a whole bunch of Hunters stuff to do from the previous stuff, but new outfits and masks definitely something I'll have to look forward to. I need to go back through the previous season Hunters that are available and the Legacy option. take a look at that myself before the new ones come out for sure. But all in all, I think that's a pretty good look into what we have to offer coming up. So pretty excited. I like the game. I love the story. I love it all comes together. Got to see the winter time in Division 1. Now we're at summer and fall, I guess, in Division 2. So everyone's still waiting, I know, for Division 3 to come out, because the latest and greatest with graphics engines, and as well as crossplay is supposedly a definite inclusion in Division 3. So look forward to that too. But that's yet to come. For now, we'll push forward with what we got here. Still enjoy this end game. So with that, look forward to seeing you in game here with some gameplay coming up. So stay tuned.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car.
All right, got here a video from a Ubisoft partner, or massive partner, or whatever you want to call them, here for Division 2. I've actually got a trip to the Massive Studios recently, and apparently got to play a little bit of Battle for Brooklyn gameplay, a little early access while he was there. So take a look at his video here. It's about half an hour long. I might dip around a little bit. I haven't seen anything yet, so I'm really curious to see. So I might stop it here, get my thoughts as we go through, considering how long it is. So we'll take a look.
Hey everyone, Rogue Gold here, and today we've got some big news to break down. Last week I got the amazing opportunity to travel to Sweden in order to visit Massive Entertainment, developers of The Division 2. We did a lot while we were there, but one of the big ticket items was a full presentation and a 2-hour hands-on demo with the Battle for Brooklyn DLC itself. So, by the time you're watching this video, the full reveal and presentation for the DLC has just wrapped up from Ubisoft Online, which means I can finally share everything that I learned, played, and what I thought of it all. Do note that any background gameplay and B-roll you see of Battle for Brooklyn in this video was provided by Ubisoft and Massive, meaning it is not my actual specific gameplay from the demo. So this is going to be a lengthy video, alright? I want to say that up front, but I promise you the runtime is not without cause. Whatever questions you may have about the Battle for Brooklyn DLC, the answer is most likely within this video. I will have chapters labeled down in the description. Please feel free to skip to whichever section you may be most curious about. Before we dive in, one thing I wanted to address, as I'm sure someone is going to comment or ask about it. This trip to Massive, including my flights and hotel, were covered by Ubisoft. I'm very thankful for that opportunity and offer. It was an amazing trip and an experience like no other I'd had before. That said, this trip did not come with any kind of stipulations for how I convey what we were shown, or to skew my opinions in any particular direction. In fact, I have no obligation to be making this video at all. I did enjoy a lot of what we were shown and played, and you'll hear about that, just like you'll hear about the things I didn't enjoy as much, or the things that I think could use more work before this DLC launches. So I just wanted to get that out of the way off the top, but I don't want to waste a second longer than I need to. So let's get right into the information. Where I want to begin is with the headline top pieces of info that you need to know in case you missed the showcase or are hearing about all of this for the first time. The Division 2's new DLC, Battle for Brooklyn, launches next month on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. It's almost here. This also coincides with a new season and kickoff for the next year of content for the game with the free Year 7 Season 1 update. Battle for Brooklyn itself is going to be a paid release in addition to the game, the first, the Division 2 has had in over 5 years. However, considerably lower than I think where many were expecting, the price point is coming in at only $15 USD. There is also a deluxe edition priced at $25 USD, but to the best of my knowledge, that purely grants you additional vanity or other cosmetic item bonuses. Aside from the DLC content itself, it is important to note that Battle for Brooklyn comes with a level 40 boost. This means that brand new players to the game can jump right into the endgame action and start with Brooklyn's story if they so choose. And then also, ownership of Battle for Brooklyn grants all players an additional 50 slots for their in-game stash. We will get into much more detail as we go on, but as for a high-level overview of what the DLC delivers in terms of content, the devs say this DLC contains approximately 6 to 10 hours worth of gameplay. That comes in the form of a new linear mini-campaign, as they call it, with main missions and world missions, which are essentially the new name for side missions as they're now.
Yeah, one thing we saw there, mentioning your price for deluxe edition, that's new compared to the 15 they mentioned in the showcase video. But we know from the showcase video, there's also the ultimate, which includes the DLC. So one thing I have a question of that I'm not sure anyone has an answer for it yet. As a previous owner of the Ultimate Division 2 game, does that mean the DLC will be free, or you still have to purchase it as an add-on somehow? I don't know. Maybe they'll, in the next upcoming days, we'll see more from the Ubisoft store or on Steam. Curious to know how that's going to work for if they're just adding it to the existing Ultimate, or if it's a completely separate add-on you have to pay for, even if you have Ultimate. So that's a strange part I gotta see. So I'm guessing they're gonna make everybody pay for it, whether you're buying Division 2 for the first time or you already own one of the previous bundles and you're just buying the DLC itself. But more to come, I'm sure. But that's one question I have for sure.
Now replayable with scaling difficulty, and then of course the open world with new zones, control points with some new twists, and among other things, 8 new hunter riddles to solve. Feature-wise, this DLC gives us our first ever Division experience set in autumn, and that comes with its own visual variety compared to the Division 2's other DC and New York maps. Players will also be seeing a new and returning skill added to their arsenal. Smart Cover is back from the Division 1. And then finally, owning and playing the DLC will offer an exclusive chance to loot a new exotic gear item called the Catalyst. Those are the major top level points you need to know. Now, let's get into some more detail. And where I want to begin is actually with the story and narrative of Battle for Brooklyn. Reason being, this was actually my biggest shock and closest thing to disappointment that I had from the pitch and reveal of what this DLC really is. I can't say it's true disappointment, as there were never any real expectations set in the marketing for what the narrative here would be. It was purely an assumption from myself and many others I know in the community too, so I will take that blame 100%. But what I'm getting at here is that Battle for Brooklyn is actually entirely disconnected from the Division 2's main and ongoing storyline, or at least it's not the focus. There's some rumblings that certain revelations might unfold as we play, and there is some stuff I saw in the time I've had with the DLC so far. No spoilers though, nice try. But the overall setup and premise for Battle for Brooklyn does not involve the ongoing conflict between Aaron Keener and his resistance and the Black Tusk and Natalia Sokolova, as well as the Hunters and Calvin McManus. This was a huge shock to me. So if learning that initially bums you out as well, I totally get it. It was asked why they chose not to use the DLC platform to expand and showcase that story that we've been following at a grander scale, and mostly the answer came down to the fact that for them, Battle for Brooklyn is a big opportunity to attract new players. Premium releases like this are much more lucrative for widespread attention compared to a new free season, for example, and with this being the second ever paid release that the Division 2 has had post-launch, they wanted to capitalize on that as much as possible.
Interesting. I know, having not paid for the first DLC, I know there's some mention of characters and whatnot from the main storyline. So curious to see what kind of things they haven't revealed entirely about the story that might come into play. I'm sure there's some tie-ins somewhere. Maybe even kind of be interesting to see. We already have characters from Division 1 that are kind of showing up now, so what kind of melding of the Division lore we'll see, possibly, that they haven't told us about yet. but I don't know. It's like I said, a mini campaign. That's a whole story in itself. So we'll see what they have.
Putting a level 40 boost by making a narrative that everyone can jump into without much prior knowledge, that's the ideal route for them. All of that being said, however, what they are focusing on narrative-wise for this DLC does certainly have some compelling elements to it, especially with how it's tied into the world and campaign structure. So, Battle for Brooklyn is set almost a full year after the original activation of the Division and the events of Black Friday and the Green Poison. In that time, and since we first went to Brooklyn in the Division 1's tutorial, the area has remained mostly peaceful. And in that calmness, Theo Parnell, along with Agent Melanie Hoskins, who some of you may know of, established the Bridge Settlement. And in securing a more or less neutrality agreement with a Riker faction also inhabiting the area, things have stayed quiet. This is a big reason why, in that initial gameplay teaser that we got last month, I saw several comments of people saying, why do things look so tidy and clean? That's not realistic to the Division's world. In Brooklyn it is, right? This has been their slice of paradise. That is, until the Cleaners launched an invasion of the city. They've brought with them a new weapon called the Purple Flame, and the threat it poses to Brooklyn's stability and the Bridge Settlement's infrastructure that they need heading into winter is why we're called in for backup. I don't want to give you too many story details so as to let you all experience things for yourself, but despite the initial maybe disappointment of learning what the story focuses on, depending on what your expectations were, there's still some good stuff here, including fantastic callbacks to the
I like the desks here that appear to be made from. It kind of gives you the idea that they're pallets, little pallet desks, something like that. So, that's at least the top part here, and the side kind of, yeah, minus or add a few different elements of structure, but yeah, wood pallet desks.
Division 1, with the intro sequence seeing us storm the police station from the Division 1's tutorial mission and the original E3 2013 trailer. There's returning characters from the Division 1, and as I was mentioning earlier with the world, there's some expert world design here to where you can literally see the Earth becoming more and more scorched the deeper into the map you go towards where the Cleaners invasion has occurred. And then one final detail to underscore, I briefly mentioned it in a prior section. Unlike how Warlords of New York specifically was laid out in terms of its freedom for you to go after any target in any order to progress the campaign, Battle for Brooklyn is entirely linear, with a fixed progression path in terms of what events happen when, which missions you play when, and while this is a departure from some prior Division entries, yes, from what I saw, this lends greatly to overall immersion. The devs can have dialogue delivered at relevant times in gameplay moments that leads you into the next activity, and it can create some real sense of urgency and stakes in most cases as it knows what you're going to play next. So that's one big change on display here. Alright, with the story down, I want to move on to some more specifics in terms of what...
That's kind of one thing that lends itself to campaigns, as it were. I mean, linear is the most logical fashion, so that makes sense. When you're playing a story mode of things, you want to, follow the story, and jumping around could be confusing if you're allowed to do that. Once you get done with the story, obviously it's an open world game. You can do whatever you want and follow through and replay those small segments of the story and kind of go from there. But have the open world freedom, but also still have the story, that narrative that follows some continuity.
Content is on offer. I mentioned earlier that the devs predict 6 to 10 hours of gameplay here, but that's a large window, so what exactly are we getting? Battle for Brooklyn is bringing 2 new open world zones, Dumbo and Brooklyn Heights. These are populated by all of the existing open world activities in which we're familiar with. The bounty system is in place here, just like in DC and Lower Manhattan. Then there are 4 new control points in total, 2 per zone. Again, some new features coming with these that I'll break down in the open world section. There are 16 new world bosses, just like how Warlords has all of those roaming bosses to kill on a set respawn timer, and then a bunch of puzzles and secrets to solve, including, as I said earlier, 8 new Hunter riddles. I was quite surprised by this personally. We're getting 3 new main missions, all of which are off-site from the DLC's map. Initially, some may not like hearing that, but upon hearing the devs' explanations and playing one of those said missions, I'm actually a fan, because it lets them make these missions, maps, and locations much more unique and bespoke, instead of being tied to attaching them to the world boundaries they've set. content. Within the open world itself, however, there are 4 new world missions, which as I explained earlier is the new name for side missions. In Battle for Brooklyn specifically, the dev said that these are roughly half the length and size of a main mission, and for the first time in the Division 2, these are replayable. You can choose any of these standard difficulty options and replay these however many times you like, just like a main mission. I did inquire as to whether world missions would become part of the daily targeted loot rotation, but the devs did not have a conclusive answer at the time of the demo we played. With that context in mind, before I start giving you my own thoughts and insight into what I played from the DLC, I felt it was important to clarify how much I was able to play. By the devs' estimations, we had access to roughly 1/3 of the DLC's content. That includes the new settlement, the bridge, one of the 2 open world zones, Dumbo, 2 of the 4 total world missions, and 1 of the 3 main missions. Different people at the event chose to do different things with the time they were given. I personally pushed to complete both world missions and the main missions available so as to be able to give you all the widest context I could for the content on offer. So I didn't get quite as much time to explore the open world as others maybe did, but I did feel like I got enough of a taste to report what's on offer. Reason why I wanted to clarify that, my anecdotal thoughts on what I played can obviously only cover what I played. So just keep in mind, if I really liked one thing, maybe it doesn't stay consistent and is not present throughout the rest of the DLC. Or if I didn't like something from one mission I played, maybe the next one has it in spades.
Yeah, so good to know that not everybody who has had access to this preview has the same opinion. So we'll probably look around for more videos to figure out kind of who else may have a different perspective on what they played. Where they ran around, did the free roam a little more to figure out how zones worked, or if they played some other missions that he didn't play. So good to know.
Simply don't know, right? So just keep that in the back of your head. A couple of other important notes to make. We were given fresh level 40 characters for this demo at SHD level 1 with a mixture of high-end and purple gear equipped when we started out. The dev said that they were still working on final difficulty tuning for a more quote-unquote endgame geared player, like most of you listening and myself of course are. So I unfortunately am not going to be able to report on how difficult or not this content might be for people at our level, at least in terms of enemy scaling and all of that. I think I played both world missions and the main mission on hard. I tried challenging at first, and then I decided if I wanted any chance to complete everything within the 2 hours, I had to scale back. So just keep that in mind as I give my thoughts and feedback here. Another thing I'm sure people will ask about is what kind of technical state did I find this demo to be in, right? Were there any bugs, crashes, etc.? Performance-wise, I had 0 issues. We played on PCs, I used a controller, I had 0 crashes, stutters, input delay, anything like that. I did run into a few bugs. For example, a squad of NPCs in the open world one time spawned in a building and were stuck. The smart cover deployable was hovering in the air above the cover we bunkered in, at times obstructing my ability to properly aim at enemies. That said, some things to keep in mind. For one, in demos like these, the build used for them is pretty much always branched off long before when you actually sit down to play it. By that I mean this version of the DLC was likely around the ballpark of a few weeks old. I unfortunately did not get any specifics on that, but what we were told is that at the time of us attending the event, the DLC content was complete. And from then until its launch next month, the team was solely focusing on polishing and bug fixing. And on that note, the devs were in the room with us the entire time we played. People from both Massive and Bucharest studios, watching, taking notes, gauging our thoughts, and throughout the play session, people were reporting any issues they ran into in real time, including the ones I mentioned before. So, all of that is to say, I have no idea how the quality of this DLC will be at release. I don't know if they will fix up every issue we ran into, but just know that according to them, that is their sole focus right now. And aside from those few issues I encountered, I had a rather smooth experience overall. But with that covered, let's get into some deeper breakdowns and
I mean, that makes sense. The storyline, the content, all of the foundational materials there, it's done. Now they're just trying to get fine polish and everything, get it all to work together smoothly. So the bugs he mentioned getting don't sound like they're too much to overcome, and over 30 days to have before release date. So I'm sure they're gonna have a nice, good product to put out here. So no more bugs that the normal game has now, which I've run into very, very little. So the occasional door that doesn't open, so someone's stuck somewhere you can't get it. That's been the worst of it, really.
my thoughts, shall we? I wanted to begin with new gameplay mechanics because there is one pretty notable one here. During the narrative section, I mentioned how the Cleaner's new weapon is this purple flame, and indeed, if you play the Paradise Lost incursion, this is the same purple flame and accelerant that we saw used at the Merit Estate. That introduction was the Cleaner's test run with it, and since then they've now been able to mass produce it, and are using it to wreak havoc on Brooklyn. The purple flame in the DLC does work a bit differently than it did in the incursion. For instance, it doesn't linger on the ground like it did in Paradise Lost, and, at least from what I experienced, there are no mechanics like we saw with Rite where enemies can be engulfed by the flame and are therefore immune. However, that's not to say that it is just a cosmetic change that makes the Cleaner's fire purple. There has been a new gameplay mechanic added in relation to your armor. Now, I wish I could give you the exact specifics on how this works. I did read the tutorial on it during the demo. However, there was just so much happening so quickly, I was not able to retain the exact numbers or anything like that, but the basic concept is that being set on fire by the purple flame now also applies a corrosive effect to your armor. This is denoted by a purple icon that will show up on the right side of your armor bar. Essentially, the more you burn, the more your armor corrodes, and while the effect lasts, it means that the total possible armor your armor can repair to lowers. Now, this can be fixed over time with specific methods. Again, I wish I had extra details on that, I don't, but overall, this is just a layer of complexity that's being added to combat against the Cleaners, right? This is still the same faction that we fought before. There's no new crazy archetypes to be found in the DLC, again, at least from what we played, but this just adds a new twist and a new gameplay challenge to take into consideration. Again, my playtime with the demo was a bit too limited to really get a feel for this one. The debuff definitely applied to me and I felt it in combat, but I didn't get a deep enough feeling for how easy it is to be applied to you and how easy it is to rid yourself of the debuff, all of that. So kind of TBD from me on what I think of this overall. But at least conceptually, I'm always down for new mechanics and more intricacy to the gameplay. It is important to note if you're worried about this becoming a nuisance in gameplay, the devs did confirm that the new DLC exclusive exotic, which will be a mask called the Catalyst, is specifically designed to help you deal with this new mechanic. It'll be viable in other parts of the game as well, I'm sure, but from my understanding, it gives you various bonuses while you're on fire, like the ability to ADS and shoot, maybe more, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about that one. Moving on, let's then discuss main missions. Again, the DLC is delivering 3 new ones, and in this demo, we got to play only the first one. It was indeed the same mission shown in the teaser back from March, and its official name in-game is the H5 Refinery.
H5 Refinery. Yeah, the Purple Fire thing, I haven't run into that yet because I haven't played that invasion or incursion, mission yet myself. But I know the mechanic of having less armor, less maximum armor, is something that comes in. It's actually directed possible in Division 2, where you can have broken armor. So every time your armor breaks, it takes away a few segments of your max armor, so you can only repair up to that unless you use an additional armor kit to fix that broken armor. So to max out your armor, you have to actually essentially use 2 kits. But here it seems like it's more of a permanent thing because armor kits only repair up to that decayed state. So I wonder if after you get out of combat, if it automatically fixes itself, or if there's something more involved in getting that armor fixed and back up to the true maximum. So it would be something to have to explore when it comes out, I guess.
Among a few other details which we'll cover, this was the high point of the demo. I really enjoyed this mission. My biggest curiosity heading into it was, how is this mission going to feel, right? Because if you weren't aware, this is the first brand new main mission that this development team has made for the Division 2. Bucharest made Countdown, they made Descent, but of course game modes need to have their own distinctions and feel. They've made several reprised missions, of course, using existing mission maps for Manhunt content, but again, that's not the same as making the formula from scratch. And the closest content that we've gotten to a new mission since Season 9 in this new team, in my opinion, was the Paradise Lost incursion. And while that was fantastic, I thought it was made by a team at Ubisoft Shanghai. So again, we just didn't know what a Bucharest Division 2 fully new main mission might feel like, but I'm very happy to report that this first main mission is a blast. And for me, it hit the mark for just about every important category. Starting with environment and set pieces, in my view, Warlords of New York set the bar as far as scale and cinematic moments in main missions. Think back to the APC fight in Wall Street, scaling the split cargo ship in Stranded Tanker, hell, all of Liberty Island, you know? H5 Refinery truly delivered on all of those levels. And again, I credit this at least in part to the devs' decision to make these missions off-site. You get dropped on a gloomy and dark shore, ready to infiltrate the facility. You make your way in and it's crawling with cleaners. There's several vantage points you have to stay aware of with snipers posted everywhere. And one of my favorite elements here was the verticality. You get to scale walls, go into complexes, run across courtyards, scale the production facilities. And as you go through, there's tons of explosions, right? Close and far, screen shake, immersive music. It just hit the way that a classic Division mission feels like it should hit. And that's really all there is to say. There was one aspect that I didn't like as much, but it's one that has the potential to be fixed up or changed prior to the launch. We'll see. And those were the bosses. Now, I'm not going to spoil them here. Maybe other creators who attended will choose to, but especially given this DLC is only 6 to 10 hours, I want to try and preserve as much of the surprise factor as I can. I think you all as fans deserve that. What I will say is the mission has 2 bosses, both of them from a visual, audio, whatever else standpoint, fantastic. I love them. The issue came down to the gameplay. For the first one, it seemed like an enemy that was primed to have several destructible weak points, making for a very back and forth kind of fight where you defend, pop a weak point, damage, and repeat. However, it just didn't. And despite how cool the enemy was, it was just a shoot it for 5 minutes for it to die kind of feeling. Now again, keep in mind I was playing on hard difficulty with half purple gear. Things could feel very different with our min-maxed characters, but basically it just felt like a very flat fight for what otherwise really should have been more fun. And then
I don't have a min-max character, so it'll probably feel a little more like his original play. Still working on that part of it.
For the final boss, the game actually introduces a unique mechanic for the fight. Anna, which by the way, Anna is the main AI for this DLC, there's that reveal. She calls out a certain vulnerability that you might be able to exploit when the fight begins. So naturally, you assume, okay.
I had to learn what Anna was from a different video talking about the lore up to this point prior to the DLC. Isaac is the watch AI that we have currently. Anna was the alternate being developed as part of the Black Tusks and Hunters. For the Hunters, I think specifically, their tech. So bridging the two there, I guess that's where it comes from.
Okay, I'll do that, and then I'll get to damage the boss. Except, at least in my case, and I talked to a few other people who experienced a similar thing, I did that, and they did it again, and nothing seemed to be happening. Eventually, I just shot the boss a ton until their armor broke and I killed them, but it seemed like a mixture of an undercooked feature and a missed opportunity. Having missions introduce very light mechanics for certain fights is really cool, I think, and H5 Refinery does exactly that. The mechanic is literally already implemented. It was just that it seemed unnecessary or even counterproductive to do it compared to just shooting the boss like we always do. So I feel like there's a few different ways they could tweak things to remedy that. Again, I don't want to get too spoilery, but the boss mechanics were my only letdown and point of feedback. Everything else in the mission was fantastic, and it was so cool to see the team match the level of quality set by Division experiences in the past. Oh, and by the way, we're no longer locked to doing main missions on story difficulty for your first playthrough. The full normal through heroic selection is available from the jump. That was something I was super pumped to see personally. Next, let's discuss world missions. Once again, these are the rebranding for side missions, now fully replayable and integrated into the world. The DLC features 4 of them. We had access to 2 in the demo. Honestly, I don't have too much to say about these. They didn't absolutely blow me away, but they were fun. Pretty much what you would expect from a side mission. I think part of my problem is due to their inaccessibility once you complete them, I don't have a ton of memories or a repository of info in my mind for the Division 2 side missions, so it's hard for me to make any specific comparisons. But what I can say is that both of the ones I played were very enemy dense and action packed. That's probably intentional, I'd reckon, given their newfound replayability. DLC, probably what stood out to me most about them was their environments. That's one thing that was consistent anywhere I looked in the DLC demo. The environments are gorgeous, autumn is shining, and it feels like any of the other top tier Division worlds, you know? But for these world missions, one took place in like a production studio slash skate park. There were different rooms with various LEDs and other artificial light sources which looked cool. It also featured a final room with a new turret asset. It was like a spinning flame spitter that the cleaners were using. There were two, one covering each half of the room, and they took turns enabling and disabling. And I'll tell you, with those constant enemy spawns, I was sweating in there.
Guys, you have got to get your...
Yeah, it's something that I wonder if they could actually bring into the main Division 2 game, is have those side missions be replayable. That would kind of be a cool thing to see. Maybe that's something that I might explore if possible down the road. See how it works out in the DLC for sure first. But because I mean, even as you're doing end game stuff and jumping around from place to place, using main missions and classified missions and safe houses all as fast travel points to get closer to places that aren't fast travelable, like bounties and so forth. And the side missions and stuff as well would be kind of cool. Plus, it'd be cool to kind of revisit some of those story aspects if you're going through and trying to do the campaign over again, you know, years on the line, different seasons, and so forth. So.
Once again, fresh level 40 no build, but still, it was only hard. I'd love to see heroic. The other world mission was deep into cleaner invasion territory, so it featured a lot of that charred, ashy environment kind of look, and I recall the final room having the backdrop of like fire spewing pipes with tons of enemies, so the world missions were fun. Again, I'm curious to see if they will be included in the daily targeted loot rotation. There were definitely discussions among us how viable that could be for farming if they were included, given their shorter runtimes compared to main missions. Alright, let's then talk about the open world, another core pillar of a DLC release like this, right? As I mentioned earlier, I was able to see a bit less of the world due to my desire to complete all the available missions, but from what I did see, it's pretty damn good. The word I remember using on how I felt about the demo was familiar, which could be construed negatively, but what I mean is, it's Division. It's more authentic Division goodness. The environmental storytelling is on display everywhere, just like always. The concern people had about the streets looking clean and cheery, not something to pay mind to. Like I said in the narrative section, closer to the settlement, you will see signs of growth and prosperity, but head out just a few blocks and you will see the destruction that the cleaners have brought to Brooklyn. It gave me big vibes of that one iconic burning building in the Warlords map. I'm sure you all know the one I'm talking about up near Chinatown.
Don't know, but look forward to it now. This one here, I guess.
Very reminiscent. Also, I know I mentioned earlier, but autumn is really refreshing, and you notice it everywhere you go. Leaves can build up, flow with the wind, and really just the color palette change compared to the summer in DC and New York is so welcomed. A big element this DLC is leaning on is Division 1 nostalgia, right? They brought back Smart Cover, we're going back to Brooklyn, and so, honestly, it was really cool to revisit those same blocks that we started on 9 years ago, and to see what's changed in the many in-game months since then. If you're curious on the scale of things, we were shown an overlaid graphic of the Division 1's tutorial zone atop the new Battle for Brooklyn space. I would say the tutorial zone accounts for roughly 35% of the DLC's total play space, and that is all entirely within the Dumbo zone, which is what we had access to. The Brooklyn Heights area is entirely new stuff that we'll get to check out once Battle for Brooklyn launches. Of course, the open world isn't just visuals and city blocks, but also the content that it delivers. The first thing I wanted to touch on is control points. We've got 4 new ones here, 2 per zone, and I think I've mentioned more than once now that these have a new twist on them. There's 2 things. For one, these control points now have visual aspects and dressings that change depending on if the Rikers or cleaners are controlling them, so that's neat. And then additionally, extra gameplay challenges, I guess you could call them, get added to the control points in scaling amounts depending on what tier you play it on. So, for example, as many of you likely know, you can play control points on tiers 1 through 4, which scales more or less with normal through heroic difficulty. Depending on what tier you do, different challenges and defenses will be in place. Now, I don't have specifics on which ones get added at what tiers, but here's what I was able to see. I had my world difficulty set to challenging, and I stumbled across a control point while exploring the open world. Fog of War is back, by the way, for Warlords. So it was a tier 3, and not only were the usual NPCs standing guard, but there were also shock panels laid strategically around the area, much like in Countdown or Descent where the floor can be electrified, except said these were continuously electrified, and then also there was an automated turret. Not that fired bullets, but that fired rockets. That's right. So here I am strolling up, I call the flare, all of a sudden I've got a dozen Rikers shooting at me, I've got intermittent rockets raining down on me, and when I tried to push up, I got shocked. Now you can disable these added defenses via the classic yellow wire leading to a destructible panel. From what I was told, the locations on those spawns are static, they won't change. So it's very possible that after a few clears, these new defenses become mostly avoidable and not an issue, which would be too bad, but it's just that extra layer of challenge, right?
Yeah, to me it sounds terrifying. I look forward to getting that to figure it out.
Wrong rocket and you could be dead. Beyond just the control points, as I mentioned, all of the existing open world activities that we're accustomed to will populate the Brooklyn map. The devs did confirm that there are 10 unique bounty locations across the map. That's a solid number, I feel. 16 new world bosses, again a bit of a shock given the map size. These guys are probably going to be quite backed in. And that's the one element that I really took note of while playing, the density of everything. Everyone I talked to who played the demo had the same impression. You couldn't take 5 steps without finding something, whether it be an interactable door, pulling an access key off of a body, a lock to shoot, right? Those kinds of things are everywhere from what we were able to play, which is really cool. To make it even more populated once this launches, the devs did confirm that over 30 new collectibles will be spread across the map. Those were disabled in our demo, but they'll be there at release. And then, I know I've already mentioned it more than once, but for there to be 8 new hunter puzzles is really astounding to me.
Meet the new.
Yeah, I guess I mentioned before, the hunter puzzle stuff, I need to go back and do some legacy ones. Those are riddles you can do, get masks for. So I've done 2, maybe 3 of them. Just out of chance, really. Finding something and trying to figure out what is this for, and going through it. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to those challenges because the hunters, the manhunt stuff, it's tough. It's really tough, especially as a solo. When you don't have min-max like you mentioned before, you've been playing forever, you have the best gear and builds to do it. And you're kind of just borderline putting down enough damage to get through it, but you don't have the survivability. It can be a challenge. And I usually see, at least for 2 of the missions, I know I've called them backup. So needed a helping hand for sure because they're not easy.
Largely because we're only dealing with 2 new zones here, these are going to be tightly packed, and from what I saw, a lot of the devs are quite excited for people to take a crack at some of these. I know people at the event tried to find some clues in the 2 hours we had, I don't believe anyone did, but that's going to be a really fun moment as a community to solve 8 new ciphers. So, overall, while the world is maybe a tad bit smaller than I'd hoped for this DLC, at the very least the devs seem to be making up for it by packing it with tons of things to discover and explore. Alright, now before we close out, I had to dedicate a section to one other big highlight feature of this package, the new/returning smart cover skill. I was shocked to see this. Some of you might recall from my predictions videos that I did not think we would see a new skill in this DLC, and while it's not 100% new, at least conceptually, it is fairly redesigned from the Division 1, at least in its bonuses. Funny enough, this was the mystery skill that we saw on the agent's backpack in the gameplay teaser. Everybody thought it was a new skin for the sticky bomb, but no, it was smart cover right under our noses. So the Division 2 smart cover will have 2 variants, the offensive precision variant and the defensive fortified variant. Now, unfortunately, I regret to inform you all that I have failed. While I fully intended to play with both variants during the demo in order to report how they felt, I equipped the precision variant when I started out and just never swapped off of it. It was too good, and that is the resounding feedback that I felt and heard from others. Smart cover is going to change things big time in the meta. So, functionality wise, you can use smart cover in 2 different ways. Either you can hold the button while out of cover to aim and attach the skill proxy to your desired location. This will then create a radius, and anytime you're in cover within that radius, you'll get the bonus. Alternatively, if you're already in cover, you can just tap the button, and your agent will stick the proxy to the cover you're already in, centering the radius around your current position. Unlike the Division 1, you cannot get lingering buffs from this upon exiting cover. Smart cover's buffs will only apply when you're actively within the cover, within that radius, so just keep that in mind. That said, in doing so, it rewards you plentifully. So, the precision variant, which again focuses on offense and damage, it grants you weapon handling, damage to targets out of cover, and auto reloading upon weapon swapping. Can you feel my intense staring through the screen? No, but seriously, it's wild. Again, my usage of it in the demo wasn't optimized, my purple gear wasn't doing me many favors, but just thinking of the possible combinations of that, especially in group play, if I'm remembering correctly, because I know I looked, I think at tier 6 it gives you 45% damage to targets out of cover. If you have a healer smart cover combo skill build on your team, you're going to be unstoppable. So that one was a ton of fun, I can say because I actually used it, and it seems like it's going to be very strong. The fortified variant, on the other hand, grants you bonus armor. I know this is an initial proc. I don't know if you could re-proc it by exiting and re-entering cover. Could potentially be busted if so, I'm not sure. But then also you get active explosive, stagger, and pulse resistance, again while in cover and within the radius. So, and this was noted in the presentation, this could be a bit more of a PvP item. Having the ability to gain pulse resistance without investing on your gear could be a big deal for Dark Zone stealth play, even just trying to avoid roaming teams in conflict. So I'm curious to test that one out. But yeah, the precision variant specific.
Yeah, I could see that being an ambush tactic where you lay that down and just wait for someone to come by when you are aware they're in the vicinity or something. Run away, take cover. They come after you. Hey, bam! I'm right here in this cover spot because you didn't see me because I couldn't pulse me, kind of thing. So it'll be interesting. For me, I haven't done PvP. I did some Dark Zone in Division 1, but short of doing the discovery of the DZ entrances for the 3 zones in Division 2 main map, I've not gone in and done any battle for PvP stuff or done any of the PvP content. Just because I know everyone else has had years to get their gear up, and I would be slaughtered. So from what I hear, it's not fun if you're not already geared up and good at PvP. So starting as a disadvantage spot doesn't sound too fun. So maybe someday we'll get to that. I'll get to that point, but we'll see.
I foresee many people gushing over once they get their hands on it. And, just to clarify, much like the Decoy, Sticky Bomb, and Trap are exclusive to Warlords of New York, the Smart Cover will be exclusive to Battle for Brooklyn ownership, but once you do acquire it, you can then farm the mods for it anywhere in the general loot pool. Okay, my friends, well I think that just about breaks down every major aspect of the DLC, again at least from what we got to play, experience, and learn about it. I wanted to include a final kind of overall impressions or a too long didn't watch section towards the end here. It's fun. I think people's biggest sticking point will be the size and scope. This is a smaller than Warlords story DLC, just like the devs have said it would be since day one. I know people had their wild speculation about it including survival, a new Dark Zone, this and that. Pretty much every step of the way since this thing was announced I've been trying to temper people's expectations in my videos, or at least bring them a bit closer to reality. I know the large delays this DLC got maybe inflated some people's expectations that it could be bringing more content than we first thought, but the reality is that this team, which is a fraction of the size of the one that built Warlords back in the day, was doing their best to create a cohesive, packed DLC package for us to sink our teeth into. Is it perfect? At least from what I played? No. Again, I'd hope to see a bit more boss depth. I'd wish they pushed the new control point mechanics a bit further, especially since they went through the effort of adding that stuff to begin with, and I'm sure I could dig up more nitpicks.
Yeah, but for sure, I know I'll be looking forward to playing it because, like I said, I haven't played through Warlords yet. There's so much content in original Division that, I mean, you can spend hours and hours in the open world there, just roaming around and getting stuff done. So replayable missions and stuff, I'm sure it'll all make for a good use of your time. But you know,
the $15 price tag, I can guarantee that you're going to get a rich and secret dense open world, some true to form and fun main missions, a really strong new skill, and everything else that we went over in this video. Am I a bit bummed that the DLC's premise isn't seeing the Keener, Natalia, Cal conflict spill onto the streets of Brooklyn? Yeah, I am. But this vision they've put forth of the Cleaner invasion is executed quite well in gameplay, world design, and more. And again, I've only played 1/3 of the content. I know a lot of the devs kept reiterating their excitement and joy of working on the final mission of the DLC, so I'm quite interested to see what awaits us there, but this is what it's being billed as. a DLC being made for a 7-year-old game by a small, passionate team. So, shout out to the devs at Bucharest specifically who have been pouring their efforts into this for the last 2 full years now. I'm excited to play more of it and to fully dive into the battle for Brooklyn. Folks, that is just about everything I have for you in this video. To the best of my ability, that is my recap of everything I was able to play and learn about this upcoming DLC for The Division 2. I tried my very best to keep this concise and consumable. I know it's probably still a lot to take in despite those efforts, so certainly any questions you may still have after watching, please do leave them in the comments below. If I'm able to answer whatever you want to know, I will. And beyond that, I would love to gauge your guys' reactions to the DLC and its reveal. Is Battle for Brooklyn shaping up to be what you were expecting? What do you think of the story premise, the content size, smart cover, 8 new hunter riddles, the $15 price point, all of it? I'd love to know what you're thinking. Before I close out, I wanted to give one final thank you to the team at Massive for hosting our...
Is it supposed to be HS or H5? You mentioned H5 facility. But it looks like it could be like a HS Fuels is the name of the production plant or something. I don't know.
Our crew that got to visit. Like I said, it was an amazing experience, truly unforgettable, and so special as somebody who's been a fan of these games since day one. I'm so grateful I was considered for invitation. It was a joy to play this DLC and to get this information early, of course, but it was an even greater pleasure to meet the people behind the screen, not only the crew at Massive that we know so well, but the representatives as well from the Bucharest team that were able to make it up for the event. Those guys and gals put in so much work that goes largely unrecognized, and to see their excitement about our excitement for checking out the DLC, it was priceless. So shout out to them, to Massive, to this amazing community, and all of you watching that made this happen. I could never be thankful enough. Truly. Thank you all so much for checking out this video. I hope you loved it, and I will see you all in the next one. Until then, folks, Rogue Gold. Ow.
Yeah, nice video by Rogue Gold. Definitely glad to see a good cover of everything they've been able to experience in that trip. So cool for him and other creators that got to go there for sure. So, well, it seems like it's it for new release stuff. So, find some more videos or something that give us more inside look to other areas that maybe like Rogue Gold didn't cover here in the time play he was allowed to through a preview. Look forward to seeing that. Sweden trip debrief. Who's this by?
Check this out. I'm going to show you.
I don't care about your insurance scam commercials. I say scams because, yeah, cut-rated insurance claim process, blah, blah, blah. Who was this by? Oh, this is his full, his showcase plus the video we saw. Got it. Good job on that for sure. All right. That's all I got for now. We'll jump into a new Division stream here shortly, but thanks for joining me. Trying to knock out.